Right, I've not really filmed much of this, but I've got a few more bits in. Basically that's so I can get this engine back in. So I've ran some heat shielding on the bulkhead there. This is where the exhaust, the downpipe will run. I've got all my engine loom wiring in. Coil pack loom's heat shielded as well, so is the wiper motor loom up the back there. That's all the injectors and stuff. I basically want to get all that in because the engine sits really tucked in at the back, so it's quite hard to get access once the engine's in. Yeah, that's basically the two engine looms and the headlight loom and the alternator and stuff like that. There's my plug and play for disconnecting that loom. And the headlight looms need kind of finished off at the ends, new plugs and stuff. But so brake lines are in as well. This is the front ones. This one will run under the gearbox, so I'll have to undo that. Run it under the gearbox along with the clutch line as well that comes off of this outlet. Moving to the inside of the car. Fuse box and all the wiring's in. So you got rear loom going up the back to the fuel pumps and whatnot. Got the dash loom going across the bulkhead. Obviously still need to fit all this to the dash, fix it to the chassis and whatnot. That's the heater system, heater matrix in there. Two pipes come out here. And once the engine's in, I'll hook them up to the coolant lines. Fuel lines are in. They run along the flow here. They're riv nutted along. Up and over, up to the fuel system. Main battery line's in as well, with the fuse here. That runs along the middle of the tunnel, right up to where it connects up to the fuse box. Obviously fuel tank's back in and mounted. So we've got a facet lift pump. That fills up this swirl pot, which I think is 1 litre. Goes through an inline filter and then through a Bosch 044 pump, which then pumps it up to the engine bay. Feed comes out the bottom here. This one's blanked off. The return line goes up to the top here. And this has like a rollover valve that breathes out of here. I'm planning to extend this breather and probably run it through this hole here so it vents outside the car. Pedal box is in, it's all plumbed up as well, minus the fluid pots which mount kind of up in here. All the brake lines in, hydro handbrakes in, plumbed up. Brake line goes through to the back. It goes to like a T-piece which goes out to either side underneath. So yeah, I'm ready to throw the engine back in really. Just need to get it off the stand, get the adapter plate back on, get the flywheel back on, get the clutch back on. I'm going to put the engine in on its own without the box. See if I can get it sitting in there. I'll try my best not to scratch the paint. Right, I didn't really film much of this, but I've just went ahead and I've bolted most of the stuff back onto the engine now. So it's looking a bit more complete. I'll pop it up in the air in just a second, but yeah, basically turbo intake, air filter, got the intercooler, all those pipes back on, diverter valves back on. A lot more of the wirings in, things like the N75 valve. Fuel lines are in, they just need tightened up. All the injector wirings all plugged in. I ran a new plug to the, I think it's the air intake temperature sensor, because that plug was a wee bit dodgy when it was on the dyno before. Just little things like ran the catch can pipes, the oil cooler's now in. I've got the lines running around to there, and just lots of little things, you know, just like wrapping a bit of hose around that to stop it rubbing on the intercooler. The top section of the downpipe's on now as well. Nothing's tightened up just yet, it's just kind of placed on, but I'm going to try to get the other section on soon as well. I don't know if you can quite tell, but I've wired in the alternator. All the knock sensor plugs are in. Coolant sensor at the back. Got my 3-bar map sensor there as well. Catch cans all plugged in. Essentially everything's there. There's a few coolant hoses missing coming off the radiator. So you get the top one here that runs away around the back to the sort of plastic flange in the back of the head. And then you've got the one at the bottom there that actually runs across here and up into the thermostat flange. But what we'll do is we'll ping the car up in the air and we'll get a better look at some of the things I've done. Okay, so that's it up in the air. I think what I'll do is I'll start at the back and work my way towards the front. So obviously the rear axle was in anyway, but a few little jobs. I've got the prop shaft back on. Obviously the box is now back in, so prop shaft's on. I've routed some handbrake cables. I've made some little sort of guide tubes up at the top there where it comes through. Those just P-clip to the tunnel there. P-clip here as well. And then they go off into the Mk2 calipers at the back. Actually works quite well. Same at this side. So working our way forward from the prop shaft. Obviously gearbox is back in. This is my little gearbox mount that I made before. I wanted it to be quite small and compact so I can fit the exhaust sort of through this bit here. And you'll see the exhaust either in a previous video or in an upcoming video once the rest of the car is painted. It kind of runs off to the side here, then out there where I've notched the sill. The gearbox itself is unchanged, other than I've fitted you can just see it up in there, a Mazda RX-7 reverse sensor. When I ordered that, the boy told me it wouldn't fit, but I told him to send it anyway because I was pretty confident it would. And it fits absolutely fine. So I've run some wiring off of that, and that's basically just waiting for me to hook up to the Scirocco fuse box. That should be nice and simple for reverse lights. When the box was off, I did separate this bit here, and I've ran some more sort of gasket sealant stuff, as it was a slight weep coming from the bottom here. I did have it apart before to sort issue with the selector fork. So I've just resealed that now, so hopefully when I put some oil in the box and start running it, it should be okay. On the bell housing itself, I've made these blanking plates, just some thin alloy. So this would have been where the RX-8 starter goes. But as you can see, it's now blanked off as I'm running a 1.8T starter up in there. I've stuck on another plate in here just to cover that hole, and there's another one. You can just see it just here. You also see how I've run both the clutch line and the brake line from here. They both run under the bell housing. P-clipped up to the box here, and then from round about here, they're both heat protected and some fireproof sleeving because they run awfully close to the downpipe. You can see they bolt through to the pedal box just here. The downpipe itself actually comes down and roots just down here, so it gets very close to these, but they're stainless braided lines. They've got this heat tape stuff underneath, and then they've got the actual fireproof sleeving as well, so I don't think there should be any issues there, hopefully. Starter motor is all wired up now. As I mentioned earlier, I do need to get the correct plug. The oil cooler sits up front. Those hoses run back to that top plate there, and that is a thermostat controlled plate, which means the oil will only go to the cooler if it reaches a certain temperature. Not sure what that temperature is exactly, I can't quite remember. But once it goes through the cooler, or it bypasses the cooler, it goes down into this relocation plate, which then takes it through here to the filter. Now this is a big filter. This is actually from a T4 van, absolutely massive. I stuck it there, it's easy access, piece of cake to change. And yeah, just to increase the oil capacity really. So it then runs back through the filter, back to this relocation plate, where it then goes back up and does the rest of the circulation. This plate does have a little feed coming off it, and that's from a stack oil pressure sensor, which is this wire that you just see dangling about. But really the main focus for now is getting the engine sort of finished and in a spot where the car can just move under its own steam. I'll then be masking up the entire inside, wings will go back on, bonnet will go back on, we'll get all the panels lined up, and I'll start prepping it for paint on the outside. And then really, once it's painted on the outside, it's about 90% there. It's just a few little things to button up. So yeah, that's it for this one. If you did make it to the end, thanks for watching. I do appreciate it. Please like, comment, subscribe, share the channel around. And yeah, we'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.